Jai Bhagwan, and good morning. Welcome to Bhakti House. Before we get into I still have volume up down here on the phone. Let's not get some feedback. So, really quickly, before we get into satsang itself, a little bit of housekeeping. I just received notice yesterday afternoon that I've been accepted into a program through the Amrit Yoga Institute, their Certified Yoga Therapist program. So what does that mean for you, wherever you may be? As part of this, right from the get-go, because I already have quite a bit of the training, or at least some of it, under my belt from previous years, I've been asked to do some practical work already, and I need 8 people to work with. So I'll post some further information about that a little later today. This will be one-on-one. It can be in person. It can be across the internet. So if that's something that is intriguing to you, that you would like to participate in, and I'm going to offer these 8 sessions for free, I need 8 people, 1 session per person, and these will be free sessions. If that's something that's interesting to you, watch for a post from me a little later today, most likely this afternoon, with further details. All right, well, now that that's taken care of, let's continue on. We'll chant the Asatoma prayer and get right into our Yoga Sutras this morning. Sadhana. the eyes are open, let them close, if, as always, that's appropriate for your circumstance and environment. Bring the hands to prayer position. And as you exhale, the eyes open, repeat after me. Jai Bhagwan. So again, we're continuing to study the Yoga Sutras using Swami Venkatasananda's interpretive translation, new interpretive translation of the Yoga Sutras. Again, new is a relative term, first written in 1975. There are, for those of you who know, I also am very fond of Swami Satchidananda's commentary on the Yoga Sutras. If this is your first experience with the Yoga Sutras, first experience studying them, I highly recommend his book. It makes the sutras themselves very understandable, even if they're not understandable. And he has some very good commentary on them. So why am I using Swami Venkatasananda's translation? One, it's a much smaller travel size, but also he gives a lot of really very good instruction rather than commentary, that I have found very beneficial as I've read through it. So today we're looking at sadhana and non-attachment. Sadhana is a spiritual practice of any sort. And so you can immediately begin to identify, well, am I engaged in yoga exercise or yoga sadhana? Both are beneficial. But you know where you are on that, or at least which direction your own efforts lean more toward. Do they lean more toward exercise? Is the focus more on strength and coordination and balance, physical results? Or is the focus more on an internal discipline, a spiritual discipline of some sort? Now, only you can really assess that. And I realized I want to focus on the meaning rather than my attempt to pronounce Sanskrit. So I'll dispense with reading the Sanskrit. Sutra 12, he says, the right understanding and the realization of the real nature of these 5 categories of mental states. Now remember the 5 categories of mental states: right knowledge, wrong knowledge, imagination, sleep, and memory. And it might be better said mental activities. He said the right understanding and nature of these 5, or the right understanding and realization of these 5, is 1, right exertion. We got to be putting effort in the right direction. And the simultaneous, effortless, and wise avoidance of the distracting influences. The latter, this avoidance, includes the non-arousal of cravings and attractions that compound one's confusion. So if you know something, if you know that if you're trying to lose a little weight maybe, and you know that there is a big container of raw cookie dough in the fridge, and you know that you have this habit of opening up said raw container of raw cookie dough and simply eating it right out of the container, I'm one of those who love the taste of raw cookie dough. And there may very well be a container of cookie dough upstairs. And I may very well have got it out of the fridge this morning and started to read this. Non-arousal of cravings and attractions that compound one's confusion. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going to put this thing on the table and I'm going to mindlessly nibble on it and then realize I've nibbled a lot of it. So I put it back in the fridge. No nibbling. And the steady perception in the inner light that the mistaking of the mental states for the undivided intelligence is both the cause and the effect of the clouding of the light. So recognizing that, in this, we're using the example I just had, that if I continue to nibble, this body is going to have a harder time shedding the weight that it doesn't need. If I continue to arouse cravings and attractions that compound the confusion, if I continue to think of myself as Ramdas, if I continue to think of myself as husband, as father, as son, as man, as whatever, and these are pretty basic things. But if I continue to always identify myself as those things, it's going to be very hard for me to start loosening up the belief that I am those things. Those things may be true about this whole circumstance sitting here. It is called Ramdas. All of this is a husband. All of this is a father, is a son, is man, is so on and so on and so on. But it's the environment in which this consciousness, in which consciousness finds itself here, or rather, it is the environment in which consciousness, I, find surrounding myself. Okay? And it's difficult. Words don't describe this really well. We don't have words for this. I can't just say kakanga, and you know that means, okay, there's this consciousness in here, and this consciousness in here is talking about this environment that surrounds it, and that it's recognizing consciousness, environment. They are distinct, and they are unified, and it doesn't exist. We don't have words. It's very hard to even conceptualize this as an idea, because as soon as we start to conceptualize it as an idea, we have immediately taken a step away from the reality of consciousness. We've put a slight lampshade on that light of consciousness, or as he puts it here, the clouding of the light. So, avoid cravings and attractions that compound one's confusion. Steadily perceive that inner light. Steadily perceive, I am that. I am consciousness. He said, such perception is sufficiently strong and wise to know that the intelligence is forever uncolored by ignorant waywardness. That simple practice of what I just described, not stirring up likes and dislikes, remembering and focusing on and being constantly cognizant of, I am consciousness, is all that's needed. The thing is, we're not really good, we're not very skilled, we're not very practiced at making this steady. And so our perception tends to be, life happens, I have a moment of consciousness. Life happens, I have a moment of consciousness. Life happens, I have a moment of consciousness. And we think of these of this stretch of life, rather, with moments of enlightenment, moments of consciousness. But something has to be constantly aware. Life is happening. 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 Oh, hey, I am consciousness. Life is happening. Life is happening. Oh, hey, I am conscious. The reality is, consciousness, awareness is constant. Life is happening seemingly above that, which makes it difficult to notice that we are constantly aware. At times there seems to be breaks in the momentum of life that allows us to see clearly, oh, I am consciousness. The reality is, I am consciousness is constant. Life is the interruption. It's not the other way around. Consciousness doesn't occasionally interrupt life and show up. Occasionally, accidentally, life shuts up long enough for us to begin to recognize, oh, there's something else happening here. Sutra 13, any steady and continuous or persistent and vigilant endeavor to stand firm in the understanding of the truth of the indivisibility of cosmic intelligence is known as spiritual practice, right exertion. This is the definition of sadhana. Any endeavor to stand firm. Satchidananda says that translates this as any effort toward stillness of mind or steadiness of mind. Sadhana. Driving, realizing you're about to become entangled and going, I'm going to put the lid on the container of cookie dough called Entangled in Road Rage and put it away. I'm not going to get there. I'm letting go of it. In the beginning, it does require effort. But recall, he earlier said, simultaneous, effortless, and wise avoidance of these distracting influences. You and I may not be at the point of effortless. We may be at the point of effortful still. Does that mean our practice is not worthy? No, it just means it's in the beginning stages. So any endeavor to stand firm in that knowledge, I am consciousness. That is practice, any endeavor. But when is one said to be well-grounded? This is 14. Well-grounded in practice. When this spontaneous awareness or cosmic consciousness, and he says continues. When the recognition, I am consciousness, continues without interruption for a long time, and one is devoted to it with all one's being in all sincerity and earnestness. He says here, it sounds like he's saying when this spontaneous awareness or cosmic consciousness continues without interruption. He makes it sound like it can somehow be interrupted. I know that's not his intention, but again, words get weird and fiddly with this stuff. When our recognition, I am consciousness, becomes more and more consistent, it's easy to recognize this when the mind is quiet. We use a few techniques that Babaji calls the highest experience of yoga. It takes 6 minutes. We'll look at it next time. This highest experience of yoga, it helps us recognize, oh, I'm not all the crazy crap going on in the mind and in my life. I am rather the consciousness that observes empty mind, chaotic mind. Because consciousness is present constantly. As we become constantly, or as we constantly recognize this, so that we are now moving more and more through life from I am awareness, this event is happening. I am awareness, this event is happening. I am aware this event is happening. I am aware this event is happening. In the beginning, those are two separate things. I am aware, I am aware, I am aware this thing is happening, this thing, oh yes, I am still aware, I am still aware, I am still aware, and we kind of go back and forth. Until we really begin to become steady in that recognition. Awareness, event happening. Awareness, event happening. And that brings a great ease. But then spontaneously, effortlessly, he said that earlier. Swami V said that earlier. There is a shift to where those two, what in the beginning seemed like just one thing, event happening. The first practice or an experience of yoga is, oh, event is happening, but I am not the event that is happening. I am what is observing the event happening. And Babaji says the first experience of this meditation is, I am not the body. So we begin to see awareness, things, awareness, things, until we become established in awareness and things, awareness and things. And as I said, then a shift happens. And in that shift, it becomes again unified. But instead of it just being things and us being caught up in the things, it becomes, I am aware of things. I am aware of things. And there's no real separation anymore. But there is the distinct recognition, awareness, awareness of things. So he comes now, we've talked about what spiritual practice is, what sadhana is. It is any effort towards stilling the mind. Any endeavor. Those endeavors need to be steady and continuous, or persistent and vigilant. Another one of my teachers once called this being ruthless. Be ruthless with yourself. Be unforgiving. Not being harsh, but being absolutely every moment attentive and not giving yourself any excuse to not be attentive. So, Sutra 15. How does one avoid distracting influences without being distracted by such effort? So it's easy enough to avoid distracting influences. I'm just going to sit here and I'm not going to do anything. I will avoid all distracting influences. Avoid. But now I'm being disturbed by my effort to avoid these influences. He says, when consciousness functions in a masterly way, so that the compulsive and overpowering craving for objects seen or heard of is skillfully, that is, without suppression, avoid, or expression, oh, gimme, inhibition or indulgence. So when it is turned upon itself, there arises an intense and consuming quest of the what, how, and where of the craving itself. For some of you, you've heard Gurudev say, pranakriya is not the thing itself. The purpose of pranakriya is to follow it to its source. There arises an intense and consuming quest of the what, how, and where of the craving itself. What is the source? That is known as uncoloredness or dispassion. So a craving comes up, a thought comes up, And one way we can address this is to investigate what is the source of this thought. Is it just because I want more? I want entertainment, I want excitement, I want whatever, I want. Or is it because there's a sudden recognition, an immediate recognition rather, oh, mouth is a little dry, I should have a glass of water. Oh, tummy's a little rumbly, I should eat a little something. And that's just the beginning, okay? That's just the beginning. That's not the end of that process of becoming dispassionate. Dispassionate means simply we don't go running after every whim. As we feel the current of life moving us towards sleep, towards eating, towards needing something. I'm encountering some difficulty. I have a screw that needs to be tightened. Well, I can't do that very well with a finger. A need arises for a screwdriver. It's not that I suddenly have attachment to screwdrivers, but the circumstances of life have said, a screwdriver would be very helpful right now. And so I find a screwdriver. Are we moving through life being constantly pushed and pulled by our desires? Or are we just easily moving through life? And if someone says, would you like some ice cream? Here are the 5 flavors we have. And one of those 5 flavors stand out to you and you say, I would like some blueberry ice cream. That doesn't mean that suddenly you're bound up by attachment. It just means you were presented some options and you made a choice. It's not a problem. Whereas in earlier stages of practice, this turning craving upon itself. So instead of craving all of these external things, we're craving this recognition, I am awareness. In the beginning, it may be blind suppression. I do not drink the tea. 2, it may be an act of self-sacrifice with a reward in view. I am going to get up and I'm going to do sadhana every day because I want to shed 50 pounds. Or 3, at best, an active expression of unquestioning faith in accepted authority. Patanjali says this is good for me. I believe Patanjali. Let's do exactly what he says. He's not saying these are bad. He's saying these are beginning steps. The spiritual quest transcends such qualified self-discipline. As you become well established, you let go of all of these other reasons. The blind faith, the self-sacrifice, the active expression of unquestioning faith in scriptural authority. When that which is beyond the conditioned and therefore fragmented inner personality is directly seen to be free of all cravings. We move beyond this trust of spiritual authority, this forceful nature sometimes, and become supremely non-attached when the only thing we're looking for is to recognize, I am that, I am that, I am that. We begin to see it in everything that occurs in life. I am that, I am that, I am that. My dear friend Chandrakant, he and I were having a conversation a number of years ago. And he said, I've heard thousands of people get up front and share with Gurudev. That's one thing we really can't do here in this satsang. At this point, Gurudev would say something, okay, now, what did you hear? Ask some questions. It's a little difficult to do. You can put them in the comments, but I won't see them until we finish. He says, usually when people get up there and they start to share with Gurudev, it goes something like this. It goes, well, I thought what you said was good. I thought you were talking to me. It reminds me of when I was 6. And then we get a novel about when this person was 6. It's not that it's bad that it's reminded them of this event from their past history. But sometimes that past history has nothing to do with what's been talked about. It's just the person wants to talk about their past history. And at other times, it really doesn't relate to what they heard or understood. It's just a story. But at all times, and Chandrakant said, I've never, at this point, he said, I have never heard anyone get up there and say, I liked what you said, I understood what you said, it reminded me that I am aware. It helped me see that I am constantly conscious, that I am always aware. So just one final note. This comes from, if we consider the Yoga Sutras to kind of be the introductory text to yoga, plus some advanced ideas in there. Satchidananda's translation would be like a primary text, a primer, an introduction. Venkatasananda's would be more of an advanced study. So this would be an even further advanced study. This is the Tripura Rahasya. Lest you think that forcing yourself to do sadhana is a bad thing. The ascertained knowledge, so this person has taken time to study with the guru, to ponder what is being studied, what he's learned, and to really inquire into it, and to really look into it. When this person has done this, he says, then the ascertained knowledge of oneness of the self must afterwards be brought into practice. We've got to practice this stuff. Even forcibly, if necessary, until the experience of the truth occurs. So until you have this yourself, not this book, but this direct understanding, then use blind suppression. Just stop the thoughts, stop the cravings, force them to stop. Every time you catch yourself, I'm doing the thing again, stop the activity of the mind. Focus on breathing, focus on sensation. Use it as an act of self-sacrifice or of gaining a reward. I want peace, I want peace, I want peace. I want to lose 10 pounds, I want to lose 10 pounds, I want to lose 10 pounds. Whatever it is. Or just put your absolute faith and trust that, well, scriptural authority says it's so, I'm going to give it a try, I'm going to give it a try, I'm going to give it a try. Personally, I think that's the least beneficial reason. That's why I tell people to not believe me, but to try it out for themselves. All right, as I kind of figured we would, we've gone over a little bit. So again, what can you do to put this morning's satsang into practice for yourself, so you're not just having to believe me? Every time you notice you're getting caught up in the story, stop the story. Take a step back. Breathe for a moment. Close the eyes if available and focus up at the third eye. Remind yourself, I am not the craziness of this moment. I am awareness, observing the craziness of this moment. And at that point, it may just be words. That's blind suppression. Not a bad place to start. Try it. And then as everything settles, open the eyes and attend to whatever is needed. Of course, if you're driving, leave the eyes open the whole time. And when that person cuts you off in traffic, I am aware someone has cut me off in traffic. I am aware. And then what's the next appropriate thing to do? Okay. All right. Well, it is, as I said, it's a little past time. Tomorrow we'll look at some other postures. We'll focus on standing postures tomorrow. And on Friday, we'll take a look at what Babaji calls the highest experience of yoga and how we can use that, because many of you have experienced this already. We'll look at how we can use that in a practical sense. How can you use that in your everyday activities? All right, let's chant the sound of Om. Sit tall. Let the eyes close if that's available. Focus on breathing. You may have lots of thoughts going on in the mind. Remind yourself, I am aware of thoughts. And in a moment we'll chant Om. And as we chant, I am aware of Om. Let's take a breath in. Inhale the hands to prayer position. I am aware of hands in prayer position. Exhale the eyes open. I am aware of images streaming in through the eyes. Jai Bhagwan. Remind yourself again and again and again today, I am aware. And I'll see you tomorrow. Jai Bhagwan.